That's me. I was 23 years as a combat medic in the army. You've got to have a military service to be a yeoman warder. I've been a yeoman warder for 14 years, fighting on the front line of tourism. Sorry, that's a sort of old joke. Anyway, I was asked to write a letter to the future, and I thought that's going to be an interesting,
process.
Artistic exercise was the word I was going to say. It was an interesting exercise. But as far as the optimism, oh bollocks, it's gone off. But the real challenge was the optimism. Okay. Anyway, that was the thing. But let's leave it. Anyway, I came at it slightly differently. I didn't actually write, because I've got no one really to write a letter to the future to, so I made something up. Now you have to understand that what you're listening to is a piece of evidence, and it's not actually a letter to the future. It's a letter to someone in the future, written in the future, but it's not really a letter, and that becomes apparent. So I'll read you out this document that has fallen from the future through an Einstein-Rosen bridge. For those of you, well done, physicists. Anyway, it's ended up on me. Anyway, here we go. I'm a bit nervous, actually. Okay, right. Public Order Directorate, UK. Transcript evidence. Homicide. 16 Johnson Drive. 24th of June, 2072. Voice recording. Victim's voice authenticated. William Callaghan, 245-38914. Verdict, unlawful killing. Dearest Teresa, this must be a scary time, but you need to focus. This is evidence. The last words of a dying man. Nigel is dead. And by the time you hear this, so shall I. Please listen carefully and forward to the Public Order Directorate, the POD. That makes me feel old. I remember when we called them the PLOD, the police. The name has changed, but the job hasn't. This will save them a lot of work. Nigel stabbed me. I shall bleed out soon. I don't blame him. He was really upset. And were I his age, I may have done the same. It was a crime of passion. And it's reassuring in a way that he felt so strongly that he then shot himself. He sat in the chair opposite me, and he will be the last person I see. I want to say I'm sorry for two things. It feels a bit like confession, but you won't remember that. The churches disappeared while you were a child. You have social media instead. What a thing that is. Firstly, I am sorry that you must hear my last words and share them with strangers. Please know that I loved you. Don't come into the house. Let the POD do their thing and tidy us up. You won't want to see us like this. Secondly, you are now alone, and it must be scary, but it won't be for long. You're a fine young woman. Things will seem dark and bleak now. I'm very sorry for that, but believe me, that'll pass. And no matter how hopeless it seems now, things will get better. Time does heal. Give yourself time. Think on this. I came from poverty. I was lucky to be loved by my parents, but they were unlucky to be poor and Irish in England at a time when it was fine for an employer or landlord to advertise with a caveat that blacks and Irish need not apply. We got by on charity of others, and as a kid I never thought I'd live in a palace, but I did. I was front seat on some historic events. My service in Northern Ireland was spent in fear of my life. No one ever thought there'd be peace, but they dared to hope, and now look at the place. It's booming in a different way. We have even had a sneaky, dirty weekend there. Remember that? It's one of my treasured memories. Skinny dipping in the Atlantic. I wouldn't have done that as a lad. That's the upside of a warmer planet, see? That too was bad for a while, but it's settled down a bit now. There was the Brexit thing. Most of the opinion formers said it would be a disaster and predicted doom and gloom. Yet we met on May Day, the 1st of October. Who'd have thought she'd have had 5 parliaments? I recall when May Day was in May and a time of antisocial socialist riots. Now it's the birthday of your namesake, Tess. We met in Farage Square. That was once Trafalgar Square. That moved away. That move away from the hegemony of the European Union started a chain reaction that within a decade or so saw the EU become a memory. The member states looked inward for identity and outward for business. The following deregulation meant people could trade and actually move globally while living locally. The wonder of the World Wide Web. Free information was the key to freedom of movement and trade. Social media allowed immediate and crippling censure of organisations and people behaving against the best interests of humanity and the planet. I'm glad Tim Berners-Lee got the 4th plinth in Farage Square. It turned out that the fear was the fear of change. I've lived in a time of fear, Tess. Hunger, poverty, disease, war, fear. These are words you understand differently than I. Change came, and it will be ever thus. It's nearly always for the better in the long run, because basically there'll always be people that are driven to make that happen. Don't despair. Be optimistic. Things always get better. It's evolution. The natural order tends to improvement. Even in my death, and it's getting darker now. My eyes are dimming. I am rather joyful. My end shall be an ambition for many, and you must have this written on my stone. Bill Callaghan, soldier, poet, historian, playboy, murdered by a jealous husband, age 110. I live to inspire. Thank you.